So the VoD Ramen guy, he said, "This is my response as a sponsor. I haven't gotten a single DM here or on the VoD account. This is important because I've gone through a lot of stuff over the past 9 years, everything from people who deserved to lose all their sponsorships to people who were misinterpreted. If people truly and genuinely think something's wrong, I can tell you that I instantly know and get flooded with messages. Yet I didn't learn about any of this until someone had mentioned it offhandedly somewhere, and then had to actively go looking to figure out what was going wrong." And where he's wrong is that no, just because people are bombarding a sponsor with messages doesn't mean that truly and genuinely something is wrong. It just means that the people are very incentivized to do damage to the person that they're messaging you about, which is what happened with me. Like, I literally lived through this, and thankfully the majority of my sponsors are intelligent individuals instead of spineless cucks. But he goes on to say, "And so this smells like clout chasing. This smells like trying to take someone else down because it makes them feel better, makes them feel bigger." And he's completely correct. "This infuriates me. Out of all the wrongs in this world, why are people choosing to attack Zentreya, who has done so much for so many people? For a drop of clout, for an ounce of attention. Why are people so quick to want to hurt and try to take down others?" And I mean, he's probably doing the thing that I do when you ask a question that you know the answer to, but you want people in your comments to sort of explain their point of view as well. Right? Because there's no way that he's been a sponsor for so long and he doesn't know the answer to this question. And I responded to the, if people truly and genuinely think something's wrong, quote, and I said, "From experience, this is wrong. People who want to harm someone else for committing wrongthink will be incentivized to send a ton of emails, DMs, harass customer support staff, threaten their own sponsors even with throwing their weight around, even when nothing wrong has actually been done. The power trip, the clout chasing, and the chance to look like a hero creates an intoxicating drug-like allure." And it does. And in content creation, it is like especially popular to do. Like there were drama channels that would manufacture drama with other channels in order to boost each other's views, right? Like this is just what happens in content creation, and it fucking sucks, and I hate it. And his other quote, "Why are people so quick to want to hurt and try and take down others? See above, the power trip of being able to take someone else down a notch, especially if that person has a large platform. The idea of being part of the good guys TM collective, taking action against the bad guy TM, who said or did something the good guys TM decided is wrong. Of course, the good guys TM are actually the bad guy, and the bad guy TM has done nothing wrong. Everyone is tired of struggle sessions. Do not apologize when you've done nothing wrong." Sounds like the top echelons of Twitch, not gonna lie. I would say that a lot of people see it more often in the top echelons just because those people are obviously more prominent, they get more views, they have more clippers, their stuff is everywhere. It is prevalent in all tiers of content creation. Even if you think like, oh, you know, who's gonna try and take advantage of me? I only have like 5 viewers. Someone is going to, because you have more viewers than they do, and they have incentive to try and cut your legs out from under you before you gain more traction than they do. I learned pretty, I would say late for how long I'd been a content creator, but I definitely learned you cannot and should not trust the majority of people you speak to in content creation as a content creator, because the just amount of shit flinging and sabotage that goes on behind the scenes is quite mind-blowing. And it's why I prefer to sit on like an island by myself at this point. And like, I collab occasionally, but I just, you know, the biggest thing for me is like, I don't want to promote someone who does things I disagree with to my audience, I guess is the best way to put it. If there's one piece of advice that I can give to every content creator, even if you're someone who like is hate watching because you're kind of silly, if there's one piece of advice I could give to you, stop venting publicly about everything. Because the larger you get, the more you venting can be used against you and taken out of context and used in incredibly malicious ways. I'm not saying you can't vent ever. I obviously do that sometimes, and sometimes my mods are like, Kirsche, maybe you shouldn't have vented about that. And it's like, well, sometimes it's hard. And I get it, like, we're all fucking humans, right? And you want to trust your chat, but your chat are not the only people watching. You really, really, really need, not want, it is a need to get somewhere in content creation, to have a group of friends that you can talk to and vent to, and especially know that those friends aren't then going to hold this against you and use it to boost their own clout. It's very important to have that kind of support group. You need that. Do not vague post. Oh, I have struggled with that in the past before, because it's like, I don't like vague posting because I don't like being able to not say all of the information. I don't like the reasons I can't say all of the information when that kind of situation occurs. And I don't like the rats that it could possibly create when vague posting occurs. And like, I'm obviously not a saint. I've definitely vague posted before. It's definitely happened. And I'm sure I'll fucking fuck up and it'll happen again. But it's like, you gotta try your best not to do that. Because it's rough on absolutely everyone. Define vague posting, please. Let's see. There are like two streamers that constantly collab with one another, and they appear as friends to the audience, and they always have a good time, and like their audiences are heavily intertwined. And then like one of them posts on Twitter, like, someone really close to me did this bad thing, and it's made me feel really bad. And everyone is like, well, we don't know of any other close friend. Like, they've never even talked vaguely about a different close friend. And so everyone assumes it's the other person they stream with. And so everyone starts making up stories about what that other person could have done. Or, I don't know if I feel good supporting this other person because I don't know what's going on and I don't want to support a bad person, right? Like, it just puts out a lot of, like, nobody knows what's going on, right? Let's say streamer A likes left Twix, but streamer B prefers right Twix. That's my favorite streamer, Yuri Ship, turned out to hate each other. That's a visual novel title. I think Tim sounds like a nice person, and I'm glad that Vitae Ramen stands behind their sponsors. But definitely, this is definitely I don't think this part is true. I think he's definitely wrong with this. It just depends on how motivated people are to take down someone they don't like. That is where I stand on that part. Rip Pramila Jayapal, very American sounding. Congresswoman, lifelong organizer, mom, proudly serving Washington 7. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. She tweeted out here, every single resident of a community should be counted in the census so that everyone in that community, including U.S. citizens, have the resources they need. It's that simple. And I can't believe she posted this without getting any input from people in her campaign, because what do you mean, including U.S. citizens? The U.S. citizens should be the default when you're talking about the census. And no, people who are not U.S. citizens should not be counted in the census. Very, very weird thing to say, lady making poopy face.
If there is undercounting, substantial undercounting, how does that undercount harm American citizens in terms of how the census is utilized?
Well, the undercount affects American citizens then because we will have areas where there's more population than was expected, even though the roads are not wide enough, even though the schools are not big enough, even though the public services are not big enough. And let's be clear, right? Highways, public services aren't dependent on immigrant status. It's dependent on the actual residents that live in that community.
And so give me some of the other reasons for anyone that's listening to this debate and trying to understand it for why non-citizens should be counted. And again, you know, we're clear about what the Constitution says, but right. Go ahead.
Again, why non-citizens should be counted is because they are part of the entire community that we're talking about. When we break it down in terms of non-citizens, obviously
you're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl.
Refugees.
I pumped my volume because this is a low video.
It includes a large body of communities that participate in that community, that deserve to have a voice in that community, and nevertheless have not yet attained this notion of citizenship.
This notion of citizenship?
That's been part of the debates that we've had, whether it was for the 14th Amendment, the original founding of the Constitution, or as I pointed out in the 1929 Apportionment Act. And we've always agreed with the general principle that we should represent the entire population and not just a small subset of that population.
Why are U.S. citizens a small subset of the population? The U.S. citizens should be all of the subset. Like, what? That should be just what the population is. What is this conversation? What is happening here? We have a newly elected Georgia GOP Secretary Jaquan Stembridge was caught in a child sex predator ring, allegedly attempting to meet a 14-year-old boy. He chairs the Georgia Teen Republicans, a high school organization, and is a member of the Georgia Young Republicans. I would like people to remember. Do you remember? All of the tweets from different young Republican groups disavowing the edgy jokes made in a group chat. The Georgia Young Republicans were one of those groups that disavowed the edgy jokes in the group chat.
No, I don't. But I'm. Oh my God.
Are you 19 or are you 17?
I swear to God, I don't want my mom.
Okay. Then
Please?
talk to me then. Don't lie to me. Are you 19 or are you 17?
I swear to God,
On
everything I look like, you can look at my
ID. Let me see the
I
ID.
don't have it. I'm for real. I swear to
Bruh,
God.
if
I
you
swear to
19, just say it. You'll get way more respect than me being
It's okay,
honest.
he can say it!
Oh my God. Look, come here. Can you look at my tag? I swear to God, I don't even have a car in my name. I swear to God. I swear to God. You can call my mom. I swear to God, I'm only 17. Just please.
Bruh, where's your ID at?
I don't have it. Like, look, check my pockets. Do whatever you want.
You in college? What you?
I'm in college. I'm like, I skipped the grade. I swear to God.
Bruh,
So you don't
you
think I'm smart?
19, bruh.
All right, I'm 17. I swear to God, my birthday's July 12th. I swear
July
to God.
12 what?
I'm 18.
You,
I'm 18. I'm 18.
bro, why you lying to me,
What I
bro?
was doing.
Why are you always lying?
Why you always lying?
And these messages down at the bottom here say, oh, I can't risk getting exposed, lol. I'd rather show in person unless you want to show first. I'm free today. And someone responded, okay, that works me either, honestly. I'm free right now till like 7 p.m. And he said, okay, I'll be free soon. They said, okay, daddy, when and where? Yes, so. And then they said, okay, well, I'm turning 15 next month. And he said, okay, how would we link then? And the 15-year-old said, shit, where you at? And then I'm hoping that that's censored, but it's okay, we can't see it. We can't see it. What's the other video?
College? What you?
I'm in college. I'm like, I skipped the grade. I swear to God.
Bruh,
So you
you
don't think I'm
19, bruh.
We heard part of
I'm
this.
17.
That shit is wrong.
I know.
I already. Bro, why you lying to me, bro?
There we go. That's where the other one ended.
I wasn't trying to make a cocaine. I would never do something like that. I swear to God. I'm just. Can you try again?
Let me be 100. Let me be 100 to you. 'Cause you already know what that shit is wrong.
I know.
I already peeped your behavior. You're driving around trying to peep the scene.
Okay.
Like, that shit ain't cool. Like,
I'm
there
sorry.
ain't none of that shit going
Yeah,
on.
he's
in Athens,
popping
bro.
off with that.
Delete the profile or whatever.
I do. I swear to God.
Apologize to Athens though.
I apologize.
You gonna do that shit
I
again?
swear to God, I won't. I delete it. I put it on everything I love. My mom, I swear to God.
Alright, don't do that.
And so I was like, I wonder if this is true and real. And so we found an article. A teen GOP activist steps down from party leadership. They just... What? Activist? Jaquan Stembridge, 19, had run on boosting youth involvement in the party. Yeah, I bet he did. A teenage college student who earlier this year became the youngest person ever elected to a Georgia GOP leadership post abruptly stepped down Saturday. Jaquan Stembridge submitted his resignation as the party's assistant secretary over the weekend. Georgia GOP chair Josh McCoon said,
Pardon?
come the fuck on, Georgia's not a real place. Josh declined to comment further, and Stembridge did not respond to requests for comment. Stembridge, 19, is a Greene County native who announced his candidacy in March and spent the final stretch of his freshman year at the University of North Georgia, commuting from campus to campaign for the job. He won the post at this summer's Georgia GOP convention on a platform focused on expanding the party's outreach and amplifying younger voices. Is that really all he ran on? Like, what made him want to be part of the GOP? I don't know anything about this guy. Dear R, don't care, Chippy wants to talk. That's a little weird. Like, what? If you're 19 years old, what the fuck are you doing looking at a 14-year-old? Like, just the gap in that alone from, like, mentality is insanity. $10 on him being a rhino? Yeah, that's what I'm feeling as well. Massachusetts moves to become an official sanctuary state under bill shielding illegals from ICE and banning police from asking about immigration status with a zero opt-out for departments. Imagine a sanctuary city, but an entire fucking state. What is wrong with you? Also, a really funny, I can't remember the word I want to use, really funny juxtaposition, there we go, between Massachusetts saying, we're going to become an entire sanctuary state, and New Hampshire saying, Yeah, sanctuary states are illegal here, and if you are illegal in our state, you will be getting got by ICE. To the point where immigration attorneys are literally telling illegals to avoid crossing the border into New Hampshire. How funny is that? New Hampshire's actually going to be enforcing immigration law, so don't cross that border. Massachusetts is inching towards full-blown official sanctuary state status, with lawmakers pushing a sweeping new Safe Communities Act that would shield illegals from ICE while banning police statewide from asking about immigration status, and no department would be allowed to opt out. The proposal, first reported by Mass Live, now before the Joint Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, goes far beyond the patchwork of sanctuary-style policies in Boston and Cambridge. For the first time, the state would lock these rules into law, forcing every police department from Pittsfield to Plymouth to follow a single set of strict regulations that severely limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Under the bill, police, court officers, and correctional officers would be prohibited from inquiring about a person's immigration status unless required by law. Officers would also be barred from notifying ICE when an illegal immigrant is about to be released from custody, except at the end of a criminal sentence. And in a dramatic new twist, ICE agents would not be able to interview anyone in state or local custody without first obtaining written, informed consent. Essentially a Miranda-style rights form for immigration. How does Massachusetts go from being like one of the biggest threats to the British during our like Revolutionary War to being this much of like a bastion of cuckoldry? The bill's sponsors, Senator Jamie Eldridge and Representative Manny Cruz and Priscilla Sousa, argue that local police should not act as federal immigration agents. Eldridge told the committee that Massachusetts taxpayer dollars shouldn't be used to help ICE detain people, insisting the measure is needed to calm fear in immigrant communities. So you don't want Massachusetts taxpayer dollars going to detaining and deporting people here illegally, but it's perfectly fine for Massachusetts taxpayer dollars to go directly to those here illegally to enrich their lives far beyond what an average Massachusetts citizen could get. Because you need a lot of fucking money to survive here. Critics say the Safe Communities Act would shield illegal immigrants from ICE by design, making it nearly impossible for local authorities to cooperate with federal agents, even in cases involving repeat offenders. The bill has enormous political backing on Beacon Hill, with 23 senators, 67 representatives, and more than 150 activist groups, including the powerful Mira Coalition, lining up behind the effort. Supporters claim the current system erodes trust between police and immigrant neighborhoods. It should. The police should be here to protect the citizens, not the illegal immigrants. And it's wild that anyone would argue otherwise. Opponents argue it does something else entirely. It transforms Massachusetts from a de facto sanctuary state into an explicit, legally enforced sanctuary jurisdiction, similar to California and Illinois, but with even tighter statewide mandates and no ability for police chiefs or sheriffs to opt out. During the packed State House hearing, lawmakers showcased emotional anecdotes, including Senator Liz Miranda describing deportation threats faced by her own family. Maybe we should look into that senator if her family is in any position to be threatened with deportation. Right? Because it's like, is it some person on Twitter saying we're gonna deport you because her last name is Miranda? Or is ICE actually getting involved because she has illegals from her family in the country? Because, like, one of them actually matters. But the political stakes are far broader. If passed, the Safe Communities Act would permanently change how Massachusetts handles immigration enforcement, raise new questions about public safety, and put the Commonwealth firmly on the map as one of the most aggressive sanctuary states in America. I think it's very interesting once again, because the Massachusetts and New Hampshire border it's very easy to cross into each state just on, like, a normal drive because of the way the roads are. And so it'll be very interesting to have Massachusetts becoming under their weird law influence, a quote-unquote legal sanctuary state, barring police officers from assisting with ICE and barring ICE from doing their fucking job tangibly.
Spicy cat
where New
raid.
Hampshire
Spicy cat
is
raid.
doing everything it can to get illegals out as quickly as possible. I feel like those two stark differences sharing a border is going to cause an interesting conflict. If Massachusetts passes this, every official who supports this should be prosecuted. I agree. The fact that there's so many that are supporting it, what did it say down here? 23 senators, 67 representatives on Beacon Hill that want to back this bill? We need names so that we know exactly which of these senators and which of these representatives are this starkly against American citizens and against the country that they're supposed to be serving. They have forgotten what the word public servant means unless they want to start shaming their constituency. These are not public servants. These are people who want to enrich themselves and destroy the country. Boston Mayor Wu sues Trump after federal funding pulled, warns 1,100 homeless could be forced onto the streets. What does she mean by this? Like, if they're homeless, aren't they already on the streets? What does she mean by this? Boston Mayor Michelle Wu escalated her feud with Washington on Monday, suing President Trump's administration after federal housing officials moved to overhaul the city's homelessness funding. A fight that now has Wu warning that 1,100 homeless people could be pushed onto the streets, first reported by the Boston Herald. Okay, if you're housing people in government housing, how many of those people in government housing are illegal? Like, what's the reason that the feds are getting involved in here? You know, I feel like you're leaving out some information. You seriously doubt Wu is an actual Christian? It doesn't matter if she is or not. I feel like she just lies about everything. The lawsuit challenges sweeping changes to HUD's Continuum of Care program, which delivered roughly $48 million to Boston this year for permanent supportive housing. The Trump administration argues the previous system funneled money into a failed housing first model, lacked accountability, and renewed projects without measuring results. So it sounds like they're being accused of some sort of laundering or fraud. Under the new rules, Boston stands to lose nearly $29 million in funding for permanent supportive housing, a category the city has heavily relied on. City Hall says the cuts would dismantle long-standing programs that stabilize some of Boston's most vulnerable residents. Wu blasted the changes as dangerous and unlawful, claiming the overhaul could leave more than 1,100 Bostonians homeless. Are they actually? If the funding dries up ahead of winter. And I think what's really interesting here is Mayor Wu and Massachusetts at large has done pretty much everything that they can to get around any kind of cooperation with the federal government. Wu, in particular, has been fighting with the feds for ages because Boston is a sanctuary city. She has had people in her cabinet who have done fraudulent things. We talked about that cocaine guy recently. We also have Michelle Wu being a racist in having holiday parties that white people weren't allowed to tend to. So we have all of these issues with Mayor Michelle Wu, and yet, despite fighting with the federal government and not wanting to help them with any kind of immigration or anything like that, she now wants to be angry with them for saying, well, we're just gonna pull some of the funding here. We're just gonna pull some of your funding. And it's like, so you want to denigrate while also still be given all of the benefits. I don't know, man. Permanent supportive housing has been a key to tackling homelessness and keeping Bostonians stable, Wu said in a statement. Housing Chief Sheila Dillon warned that hundreds of residents living in long-term supportive units, including veterans, older residents, and people with disabilities, could lose housing if the federal rules stand. Without these grants, people who rely on permanent supportive housing could lose the homes that have helped them rebuild their lives. Well, the feds were questioning the amount of money going into this and the lack of oversight and the lack of accountability because there's no records of stuff or proof that any of the help is actually having a massive effect. So I'm kind of curious, much like we found out that Democrats commit fraud with like meal programs and autism programs. Everything is always shielded by, that sounds really nice. Obviously, we want to help people, but what kind of fraud is being committed behind the scenes? At this point, I'm kind of suspicious of every program. HUD, meanwhile, delivered a blistering defense of its reforms. In a statement released last month, the agency said the Biden-era system had turned into a slush fund that rewarded political posturing over measurable progress. Wow, I'm shocked. HUD officials said permanent supportive housing consumed more than 90% of funding under the old rules, while transitional housing and treatment-based programs received minimal support. So they're just giving free permanent housing to people paid for by federal tax dollars? HUD Secretary Scott Turner said cities will now be judged on how many people achieve long-term self-sufficiency and recovery, not by dollars spent or units filled. The new framework requires project completion, service-based housing, addiction treatment access, and employment pathways. The rules also tie funding to compliance with broader federal standards, a shift that places Boston in a complicated position. Wu spent years defending sanctuary-style policies, including restrictions under the Boston Trust Act, limiting local police cooperation with ICE, and repeated pledges that Boston will not assist in mass deportation efforts. These policies are not named directly in HUD's overhaul, but they place Boston among jurisdictions whose local rules have long clashed with federal enforcement policies. The lawsuit argues that HUD cannot impose new conditions without congressional approval and says the reforms could destabilize programs serving families, people with disabilities, and older residents. The battle comes as Boston confronts record homelessness numbers, rising shelter costs, and continued pressure on its migrant support system, now intensified by a national policy shift that threatens hundreds of local housing placements. For now, Boston's homelessness network sits squarely in the middle of a Washington-driven storm, and Wu is fighting two forces at once: Trump in the courts and Winter on the ground. Nothing more permanent than a temporary government program, true. When the state controls the flow of food, they can control what people believe using threats of starvation. That's the goal of communist leftists. Oh, thanks, I hate it. Johns Hopkins researchers are offering pedophiles $100 to participate in a study aimed at quote-unquote, people attracted to younger children. The study is led by a non-binary academic who once wrote about using as a harm reduction technique. This sounds exactly like what the people talking about POCD have said before. Non-binary researcher recruits study participants from Virtuous Pedophiles Forum. Oh, it is the same exact forum we talked about before. Interesting. Welcome to Help Wanted. Help Wanted is an online course to provide help to people attracted to younger children. Our goal is to give you some tools to support your commitment to strengthen your overall well-being and keep kids safe. Supporting someone who needs help, we have resources available to help friends and families support their loved ones in staying safe. A non-binary academic who previously was forced to resign from a criminal justice assistant professorship after defending the dignity of quote-unquote minor-attracted people is offering to pay self-identified pedophiles to participate in a survey. Yo, this person kinda gross. Yo, what the fuck? Kirsche, life was good, everything was okay, and then you said POCD and psychology people. POCD was something I covered previously. It was a pedophilic obsessive compulsive disorder, and it was... I could see POCD being a thing in the way of, like, if you were abused as a child or if you were exposed to kinds of abuse as a child, you could have that deep-seated compulsion of, what if I become like that too? However, all the literature we were reading on POCD was basically the exact same rhetoric that, like, MAP people use. And it even said, like, weird shit of, like, oh, yeah, of course, if you have POCD, you're going to watch child pornography to check and make sure if you're actually a pedophile or not. And it's like, no! No, you're not going to do that! What the fuck? Yeah, so POCD was, like, a new language transformation of MAP, where it could, in theory, be a mental health condition that people who either suffered abuse or were victims of watching abuse happen could potentially develop out of fear and anxiety, but a lot of people were co-opting the terminology to hide the fact that they're actually just pedophiles and wanting people to feel bad for them. Alan Walker, now associated with the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, formerly the Moore Center for the Prevention of Child Sexual Abuse. What an interesting decision to change that name. What an interesting decision that it was formerly the Moore Center for the Prevention of Child Sexual Abuse, and now you got this weird freak who defends the dignity of minor attracted people talking about virtuous pedophiles. What an interesting thing to note. Posted the recruitment advert in the Virtuous Pedophiles Forum, where she has been a member for nearly 10 years. We gotta order a hard drive check, man. We're recruiting 10 participants for interviews within the next week to give us feedback on new content for the Help Wanted program. Interviews will last 30 to 60 minutes, and participants will receive a $100 gift card of their choice in exchange for their time. Virtuous Pedophiles, shortened to VERPED, is a group founded in 2012 that purports to seek the destigmatization of pedophilia in order to facilitate harm prevention and personal support. Hot take, pedophilia should be stigmatized. Members acknowledge that they have a sexual attraction to children, but claim to want to lead normal, productive lives without abusing children. The group has repeatedly claimed they have a commitment to non-offending and position themselves as a resource for journalists, academics, and public education on pedophilia. I have multiple videos on the POCD nonsense, and in looking into POCD, there was a mental health help forum with pages on POCD, and they had a open, like, forum that people could post, like, experiences and questions to. And when looking for POCD things on the forums, there was a guy who talked about, and it was like really fucking disturbing to read. He was talking about specifically touching around his infant daughter's chest and how it was arousing for him. And like, after reading some of the shit like that, I kind of like side-eyed anyone who would launch any defense for POCD in any way, shape, or form. Like, I don't know how you read that shit and then go, well, Kirsche, you're actually just wrong. POCD is a real condition and these people need help and we need to look at them with sympathy instead of judgment. And it's like, you know, no. And now I'm looking at you with judgment as well. That's fucking gross. It is fucking gross. What in the name of the holy wood chipper? Yeah, it was fucking disgusting. And the fact that people were defending that, and there are some people who have personally attacked me who have openly stated they have POCD, and it's like, that's really interesting there, buddy. The Help Wanted program, created by academics at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, bills itself as an online course to provide help to people attracted to younger children. A video introduction featured on the program's website promises to offer coping strategies to manage your sexual attraction to children in order to build a healthy sexuality. Help Wanted final recruitment. I wanna read this image. This was posted on the Virtuous Pedophiles forum. Help Wanted new phase final recruitment. TLDR, we're recruiting 10 participants for interviews within the next week to give us feedback on new content for the Help Wanted program. Interviews will last 30 to 60 minutes, and participants will receive a $100 gift card of their choice in exchange for their time. If you're interested, please check out eligibility requirements below, and if you can help us recruit other participants, we'd be so grateful. Hi, everyone. As you may already know, Moore in the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, formerly the Moore Center for the Prevention of Child Sexual Abuse, has been conducting research to evaluate its Help Wanted program. Help Wanted is an online self-help course for people who are attracted to children to support their commitment to living safe, happy, and fulfilling lives. We recently closed recruitment for a randomized controlled trial of Help Wanted, and as a result of participant feedback during the study, we've made some new changes to the program. Beginning today, we're looking for 10 paid participants to provide feedback on new changes to the Help Wanted content within the next week. We're reaching out to invite you to participate if you are interested and eligible, and to ask you if you would please pass this information on to others who might be interested in participating. Participants will be asked to provide a non-identifying email address for study communication and payment. Participate in a 30 to 60 minute anonymous audio-only Zoom call with a member of the study team to discuss their feedback on the suggested changes. Those who sign up and are eligible to provide feedback will receive a $100 e-gift card in exchange for their participation. Gift cards will be sent to participants' anonymous email addresses. Eligible participants must be men, either cisgender or transgender, be at least 18 years old, self-identify as attracted to children under 18, and have had no prior contact offense with a child. What an interesting set of criteria. Requirements shared by Walker offer self-declared pedophiles the opportunity to participate in an anonymous audio-only Zoom call with a member of the study team. We will not be collecting any personally identifying information from our participants, and we ask those interested in participating to please visit the link below for information on how to participate in the study and obtain an anonymous email address. Walker, a female-to-male transgender who identifies as non-binary, was the subject of a widespread controversy in 2021 after she sat down for an interview with Prostasia, a registered 503c which many have called pro-pedophile, for their stances on legalizing childlike sex dolls and routinely comparing pedophilia to a sexuality. Similarly, Walker had once entertained theories about giving pedophiles access to high-quality child pornography to stop offending.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
And someone named Natalia Antonova said, this is from Alan Walker's publicly available PhD thesis. I struggle to understand how anyone can present viewing child abuse material as just a coping strategy that is not, itself, an offense. Some of you have gone a little too far in your all stigmas are bad nonsense. Okay, this only has 299 likes. This didn't get like any fucking traction. That's crazy. It says as a harm reduction technique has previously been theorized to be a potential strategy for MAPS to maintain abstinence from sexual contact with children. What is wrong with these people, man? Like, how do you type this out and never have a moment of like, am I the bad guy? Taylor and Quayle, 2003, page 90, have suggested that individuals who view may partly choose to do so as a form of therapy, as a way of controlling their interests, as a form of personal survival, or as a way of dealing with emotions such as anger that had no other outlet. Can we just take a second here, all right? Like, viewing is already like an echelon tier of majorly fucked up. But if you're talking to an individual and you're saying that you view as a form of personal survival, like, I'm sorry, my form of personal survival is turning you into Swiss cheese. Like, what the fuck do you mean by this? What the actual fuck? And then, in addition to that, saying that you view as a way of dealing with emotions such as anger. That is horrifying. I'd be like, that man is going to fucking Albert Fish out one day, dude. He's just gonna start spiriting away children, raping them and cannibalizing them. Like, lock that fucking guy up. What the fuck do you mean? What the actual fuck do you mean? Why are we just talking about these people as if it's like, oh, he's just stealing a candy bar? Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Similarly, Wolak, Finkelhor, Mitchell, and Ibarra, 2008, page 120, have theorized that among some groups of predisposed individuals, easy access to a wide variety of engrossing and high-quality could serve as a substitute for involvement with actual victims. Do they not realize that by the existing, the children inside of it are already victims? Like, what the fuck do you mean? What the fuck do you mean? What the fuck does high quality mean? I don't, engrossing is also really disgusting language to use with this. Yes, because porn addictions actually prevent people from being perverts. Only peak degenerate non-binary hands could have typed this. Holy shit. It has been argued that individuals who view are later likely to commit contact offenses against children. However, these arguments regarding a link between watching committing contact offenses are based on unverified claims. I don't really care. If someone's already watching they're already a pedophile. I don't really care. Get rid of them already. What do you mean? The likelihood of later offending by individuals with convictions was unknown prior to a study by Sato and Ike, 2005, which found that 4% of individuals with offenses later committed person offenses. Subsequent contact offending was even less likely among those whose offense histories only involved offenses. In a follow-up study of this work, Ike, Seto, and Williams, 2011, found that 6% of individuals who had been convicted of a offense later engaged in a contact offense. Furthermore, only 1.3 of those with no history of offending, with the exception of viewing were later convicted of a contact offense. The three potential strategies for emotional resilience and resilience to offending identified in this section, engaging in therapy, forming relationships with other MAPS, and viewing are not comprehensive. These are merely the three methods cited in previous literature. Indeed, prior to the study, the existence and extent of other methods employed by MAPS to remain mentally and behaviorally resilient had been largely unknown, and the current study aims to address this important gap in the literature. That's crazy that this thing is just like, yeah, you know, if you're a minor attracted person, you should form relationships with other minor attracted people, and then you should watch. That surely won't lead to anything bad happening. What could possibly go wrong? What the fuck am I reading? That's called criminal conspiracy. Yeah, this is fucking what the fuck? What the fuck? Walker was an assistant professor of sociology and criminal justice at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. Of course they were. I'm not surprised. And had interviewed with Prostasia's now defunct podcast in November to promote her book titled A Long Dark Shadow: Minor Attracted People and Their Pursuit of Dignity. Man, they just let anyone write a book nowadays, goddamn. In the interview, Walker stated she used the term minor attracted people out of consideration for pedophiles' feelings, noting, I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. She also stated that MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term, and they've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile. You know what's crazy? Is like I was talking to someone the other day, and I brought up like how NAMBLA was pretty much the first iteration of all of this nonsense that I can remember. And they like completely innocently asked, what's NAMBLA? I've never heard of that. And I had like a PTSD flashback to the South Park episode. I was just like, what the fuck, brother? Fucking prostasia. That sounds like a commie word, right? Like, comrade, I'm recommending you to go be a ward of the prostasia. And then they get spirited away and never heard from again. The term MAP is an acronym which stands for Minor Attracted Person and is used in online pro-pedophile communities as a way to reduce stigma against individuals who seek to sexually abuse children. It was coined by the co-founder of pedophile advocacy group Before You Act, convicted child rapist Michael Melsheimer. Yeah, someone who is a convicted child rapist would say that, wouldn't they? Melsheimer explicitly stated that the purpose of the organization was to normalize pedophilia, where the National Association of Man-Boy Love had failed to do so. NAMBLA mention! That's crazy. I literally just brought them up and they were like 2 sentences down. Both Before You Act and the virtuous pedophile community has been influencing researchers and academics for several years from behind a veil of anonymity. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all. Before You Act partnered with a researcher at McGill University in Canada, who then conducted a survey aimed at gaining insight from quote-unquote child lovers in online pedophile communities in an effort to attain data on romantic attraction to children. The survey, like Walker's survey, inquired about sexual offending against minors while promising complete anonymity and privacy to respondents. In 2022, Redux became aware that a UK-based administrator of VeerPed had been placing letters within books at public libraries. The letters pleaded for more tolerance towards non-offending pedophiles. The man behind the campaign, who calls himself Bly Reed, had the year before been promoted by Candace Christensen, a sex addiction therapist, who serves on the United Nations Human Trafficking Task Force, on her show titled The Prevention Podcast. Of course, the UN is involved in trying to normalize pedophilia. Holy fuck, why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised? If I went to the library and I took out a book and there was like pro-pedophile pamphlets in it, I would be just as distressed if I found some like fucking pro-KKK or pro-communist spreadsheets inside the book. Like, that's fucking crazy. Why would you put that there? Christensen is the creator of the website The Global Prevention Project, where she has published submissions from self-professed pedophiles. Bly warned community members in 2021 that researchers and academics have access to the VeerPed forum. Some researchers describe, without directly quoting, the kinds of things that are discussed here, and they might publish those descriptions in papers, articles, etc. We see no reason to refuse this, he said. We see no reason to refuse this, but what do you mean, warned? Bly runs several websites promoting the concept of a non-offending minor attracted person, or a MAP, and he frequently portrays children as pedophiles in order to induce sympathetic reactions from readers. What? How does that make sense? In 2019, Bly published an article on his blog, The P Word, which argued that young children can be pedophiles, and that he first realized he was attracted to children when he was a child. They're literally doing the same thing as the AGPs. That's wild. In the article, he quotes the definition of pedophilia as stated in the 5th edition of the American Psychiatric Association's Manual for Physicians, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. A pedophile is someone who experiences sexual attraction to children below the age of puberty. It's quite a simple definition, and you will notice that it isn't the same as the definition we would give to the term child molester or child sex offender, Bly remarked. There is a difference between, like, an 8-year-old having a childhood crush on another 8-year-old or a 7-year-old and, like, a 15 or 16-year-old or a fucking 50-year-old being attracted to that same 7 or 8-year-old. What the fuck is we talking about? What the fuck is going on here? I just ebonicsed my way into that sentence. I am so flabbergasted. My gasts are so flabbered, I cannot English. What do you mean below puberty? What the hell are teachers banging the 14-year-olds? This is somebody who would unironically be like, it's not pedophilia, it's ebophilia. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter Making that distinction just makes you sound more suspicious, man. Like, come the fuck on. That is for the simple reason that being a pedophile does not mean you're inevitably going to sexually offend against children. Why isn't this generally known? Because the only pedophiles most of us hear about are the ones who commit offenses. The rest are invisible. Why do we stay invisible? Because we are hiding. Well, considering the guy that literally made the before you act shit ended up offending, it's kind of like, it literally is just an inevitability at this point. Like, let's be real. He added, most pedophiles realize they are pedophiles at the age of 14, and for some, it's a little earlier. What about minor pedophiles? What if shortly after hitting puberty, you become aware that you are a pedophile? What does this mean for you? What are you gonna do, and who are you going to turn to? I can speak a little about this because it happened to me somewhere around the age of 14 or 15. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? Someone check this guy's hard drive, yeah? Yeah? Bly does not mention that the DSM-5 definition of pedophilia he refers to was directly influenced by MAP activists. Wow, it's just like Wikipedia. In 2024, Redux discovered that a transgender MAP activist behind a MAP merchandise shop. I feel like if there's a MAP merchandise shop, that is a perfect place for the FBI to honeypot. Like, anyone who buys stuff from a MAP merchandise shop should just automatically get a hard drive check, man. Redux discovered that a transgender MAP activist behind a MAP merchandise shop was one of the men who was involved in a pro-pedophilia group that has consulted academics. Katie Cruz, a pseudonym used by a man who calls himself Callie Miller. So this is a man who already uses a different name of Callie Miller, but then has to have another pseudonym. Said he has been working behind the scenes with activist group Before You Act, which campaigns to have pedophilia recognized as a sexual orientation, and which has contributed to academic research at some of North America's top universities. On Patreon, Cruz has stated that his age of attraction is between 9 and 13 years old. He also has claimed to identify as having a trans age of between 13 and 17-ish. That's not how that works! And this is a post with more info on that Katie Cruz person, which I'm going to skim by because I'm already disgusted enough with this one article. In a blog written by Cruz titled A Map in Love, he states that he is hopelessly in love with little girls, and explains that he holds radical ideas of legalizing relationships between adults and tween girls.
What? What the fuck?
I've known for a long time that I was a girl lover. I've always found young girls to be desirable on an emotional and physical level, Cruz wrote in 2019. He described how, in 2007, in the midst of lonely turmoil, he discovered pro-pedophilic advocacy and communities online. I read through their heartfelt messages about how much they love and care about little girls. What they were writing was exactly how I felt, and what they preached never changed. They all truly love little girls just as I do. That fucking Oingo Boingo song is playing very loudly right now. Holy shit. One notable endorsement of VRPED comes from Ray Blanchard, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Toronto. Blanchard has helped to devise protocols and guidelines used internationally via his work with the American Psychiatric Association, which publishes the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. Blanchard served on the DSM-4 subcommittee on gender identity disorders in the early 1990s, and was again appointed to the DSM-5 working group on gender and sexual identity disorders. Which is very interesting because I was unaware Blanchard had a hand in any of, like, this terminology. I recognized Blanchard's name the last time we talked about POCD, because Blanchard is also the guy who talks about autogynephilia. Blanchard was also responsible for the DSM-5 entry for pedophilia, which distinguishes a difference between pedophilic sexual interest and a pedophile disorder, and conferred with self-described MAP activists during the process. Which is fucking wild. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? Pedophile disorder. Imagine that. Yet despite promoting themselves as virtuous pedophiles, one of the leading figures behind VRPED was arrested in Norway in July and charged with the rape of 2 children under the age of 14. I'm so shocked! Wow, who could have possibly predicted this? The man, who has remained unnamed in Norwegian press but is known as Charlie online, was reportedly a primary school teacher in Rogaland. Head of the well-known non-offending pedo activist group has been charged with raping 2 young children in Norway. The group, Virtuous Pedophiles, has been promoted by some academics and journalists as a harm reduction resource. I think this is what we read about VRPED last time. This sounds familiar. According to local news reports, Charlie was remanded to custody, placed under a contact ban, and held in isolation for the first 2 weeks of his 4-week detention period. He has pleaded not guilty to the charge of raping a minor, but was found in possession of child sexual abuse materials. Under Norwegian law, the sexual abuse of children under the age of 14 is treated as a serious criminal offense and can carry severe penalties. Charlie was released from police custody on August 13th and is awaiting trial. The sexual abuse of children under the age of 14 is treated as a serious criminal offense and can carry severe penalties. Charlie was released from police custody to await trial. These two things do not make sense together. Why was he released? What the fuck? He probably skipped town. What the fuck, man? What? This whole article was fucking wild. That was a rage-inducing article. Wow. Wow, that was so much worse than I thought it would be. Holy fuck.